I'll call the meeting to order. I have to read a little, oh, I don't know what it's called, but anyhow, I have to read this. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law C-30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may be gathered in one place. This meeting of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust Fund will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And this meeting is being recorded by me, and all votes will be by roll call. So there's that. So the first thing we have is approval of the minutes. Could I get a motion on that?
Approve.
Well, what I need is actually two motions because there are minutes from both March 5th and April 3rd.
Right. I would move both be approved.
Okay.
They have to be separate.
Okay. Move what were the dates again?
The first was March 5th.
I move that the March 5th minutes be approved.
Second.
Okay. Larissa.
Okay. It has to be a roll call vote. So let's see. I'll go with Garfield first.
Yes.
Okay. Larissa,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Aye.
John,
Yes.
and Bill, yes. Unanimous. April 3rd. I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Garfield,
Aye.
Larissa,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Jonathan,
Aye.
and John,
Yes.
and myself, aye. Okay. June, you want to let us know what's going on? I think
Yeah,
everyone has read your memo.
I'd like to turn it over to Brent, who
Okay.
the engineer from White Engineering, who's on the call. So, and he wrote the report, so he can address it best, I think. Brent, would you do that?
That'd be great.
Yes, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I don't have a camera enabled here, but appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. Very briefly, I think the report overall summarizes that this is certainly a great piece of property and one that provides a great deal of opportunity and flexibility to prospective developers here. And I realize a number of different developers may approach this property differently based on goals of either density and or just overall site design. Thankfully, we have very little in the way of challenges related to environmental concerns, specifically areas or subject to Wetlands Protection Act, what have you. So in that regard, there's actually, as well as a number of the overlay districts that the town of Great Barrington has. Fortunately, this property does not fall within those, which provides maximum flexibility to a prospective developer. Having, even though it's privately owned, a water supply available certainly allows, even if the sewer system were not to be pursued, if on-site septic systems were proposed, at least the domestic water service that's available would eliminate the need for both on-site wells as well as septic systems themselves. I've tried to be as comprehensive as I can, addressing the different options that a prospective developer would be up against here, and really want to make myself available to answer any questions that you may have or elaborate on any questions based on what you read in my report.
So for the people who haven't gotten a copy of the report, Dan, and I see that there's two other people, I think, on the call. Would you like to give me your email and I can send it to you? You can send it in the chat. Eileen, Dan, and I don't know who 327-4612. Oh, is that Carolyn? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, never
Carolyn
mind.
just lied.
All right.
She's seen it. So if you send me your emails in the chat, I will email you the report, and then you'll be able to look it over.
Hi, Carolyn. You don't have sound. There you go.
There she is.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Okay.
How are you doing, Jonathan? You look great.
Oh, thanks.
I didn't join, I'll just share with you, I didn't join by video because I'm going to be chopping vegetables for dinner. So
Okay.
it's been a very full Zoom day.
Oh, I thought you were in your pajamas.
Oh, no, no. Let me see if I can do a video so you can see I'm not in my pajamas. I will tell you, we've been on lockdown, working from home since May 16th. And there's only one day that I've been in my pajamas, and that was a meeting that somebody called as a quote unquote emergency meeting at 6 a.m.
Oh my God.
And I got the text at 5:30. I was like, wait, they must have the wrong time. It could not be 6 a.m. And so I texted them back, and they were like, no, it's an emergency. And I was like, oh, I said, I'm not even, I haven't showered yet or anything. They're like, just get on, just get on. And they were doing it because it was somebody's birthday, and they just wanted to sing happy birthday to them, which was
Wow.
a beautiful engagement moment. But I was like, oh my God, I'm in my pajamas singing happy birthday. But it ended up being pretty fun.
That's good.
Did you guys wake the birthday person that early?
They did. They did. So
Oh.
I sometimes I have a quirky board.
So we were just getting a report from the engineer. I don't know if you, I think I sent the report to you as well, didn't I, Carolyn?
Brent sent me it, so I did get a chance to look at it. I thought it looked pretty good personally.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the report?
I have a question about the septic. There was questions about the neighbors having to connect to the system.
Yeah,
No,
that's,
not having to.
Sorry?
Not having to. If their septic system failed in the future, this would be a benefit to them because then they could connect. If
Okay.
we gave them a right of way.
So
The question.
the only condition under which they would have to connect to the new one, their current one failed.
Right.
Okay.
And
That,
then-
And I'll just expand upon that briefly, if I may.
Yeah.
The Title V, which is the state sanitary code that governs everything associated with septic system design, from initial design, construction, maintenance, and eventual inspection. And one of the requirements is if a septic system fails a Title V inspection, it either must be upgraded, and then here's the caveat under Title V: municipal sewer is available, they must connect. And I think that goes to, one, what is the true availability of the sewer that could be available to neighbors via this project, as well as how it could be potentially expanded in an effort with the town at a later date. I've had a number of projects where, for instance, I had one in Outer West Street, Pittsfield past Berkshire Community College, and that's an area that is not served by a City of Pittsfield municipal sewer system. My client had property on the north side of the road, and on the south side is a private development that had their own private sewer force main. It was owned by the trustees of the HOA. There was no, the city did not own it, they did not maintain it. As a part of our getting a Conservation Commission approval to upgrade the septic, we had to demonstrate that we would not be given permission by the privately owned sewer. And also there's opportunities where even if there is sewer that's somewhere nearby, if it becomes so cost prohibitive, a homeowner would have the opportunity to petition the Board of Health to say that it would be a burdensome cost to do that here. And I think there would be some coordination on our efforts with the Board of Health and the town manager to ensure that, frankly, based upon what funding is available, unfortunately, sewer construction can be fairly expensive. So I would, depending on the funding available, would determine how much sewer work can we do on our own property, and then as Jonathan was saying, how can we design this in a way where a number of easements could be provided kind of throughout the perimeter of our property, that might make it available for some of the other surrounding neighbors to eventually connect in. So by virtue of our property being connected to town sewer, I don't think there'd be any obligation for any of the surrounding neighbors should they have a failed Title V inspection that they would have to tie in, because there's a number of things that would need to be factored in for that to even one, be allowed, two, even be constructed, and three, done so in a way that's actually cost effective to the homeowner, wouldn't be a substantial value of the property in order to make that construction happen. So I think any sewer that would be designed and installed on this property would be very conscious to work with the health department to ensure that homeowners, neighbors in the neighborhood, that they would only see a potential benefit from this, and by no means have that be a detriment to them.
So Brent, does that go to the capacity of the line that we would put in?
That's a great question. So the system that we're considering, would consider using for this property is the E1 low pressure grinder pump stations. You'll see them in a number of different neighborhoods throughout the Berkshires. The Beechwood neighborhood on the south end of Stockbridge Bowl. We've designed for a number of communities, including the Bramble Lane neighborhood. We designed a community system where every home would have their own individual grinder pump station. Each service line would be an 1.25 inch line, and then depending on what we think the potential future growth for the neighborhood would be, we would design anywhere from a 2-inch to a 4-inch force main going to that town manhole. But thankfully, with the low pressure configuration, it keeps the size of the piping smaller. If we were doing a high pressure pump station where we drained 50,000 gallons of sewage and then turned on a pump and had it run for 20 minutes, that'd be a completely different type of system, and this would be, frankly, less expensive to install, in my opinion, overall, and frankly, easier to maintain going forward. So, in this case,
the answer is yes. We would size it for future potential.
Absolutely, yes. We would go through those, and again, what I was trying to get at is that by utilizing the low pressure system, the impact of that is less so than if we were doing a high pressure pump station. That's all.
I have a question or a concern. If I remember correctly, and you'll have to excuse my non-knowledge of all the workings here of the sewers, et cetera, but what was concerned, I believe, of our friends in Housatonic of whether or not they would have to. Are we speaking in possibilities, or is it so that they do not have to be concerned, and what we're speaking about is something futuristic and or it doesn't have to be done by the people surrounding the area? Because I think that was a concern. We're going to have to, it's going to be costly, blah, blah, blah. So this is saying they don't have to, but if we did, this would be better for them and easier, and et cetera. Do I understand that correctly or not?
I think that's the correct understanding. If we were putting a sewer line right in front of their property and it was available for them to connect to, they would have to connect. But the way I envision this connection would be made, I don't think there's any homes that would fall into that category. And if we were putting it in front of their house, it would be to their benefit to connect versus having to upgrade their septic system. Most of the homes surrounding this property, I don't think that we wouldn't be doing anything that would even make that available. So in terms of the concern of Title V and what requirements they would have, I don't think we'd even be triggering a situation that would.
Now, Dan, are you on this call or are you on the Zoom meeting? Dan Bailey?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I'm here.
He is.
I just got his report, so I'm reading it. I'm trying to catch up.
So I have some more questions.
I wanted to make sure that Weldon asked for Dan, maybe got through reading it, what he felt about it, if it satisfies his curiosity. I think he's representing some of Housatonic, if you will. I wanted to see what his take was.
Yeah.
Brent, I have a question.
Okay.
If we go with a system that has the grinder and the pump, will that be accepted by the town of Great Barrington, and will they then maintain it in the future?
Part of that, that's a great question. If we pursue the MassWorks grants, we'll actually, even if a developer were to retain private ownership of the public way, what have you, we would still be required to provide an easement to the town of Great Barrington. Since we are receiving this funding source, where the town would have the right to come in and own and operate that here, frankly, as a part of the zoning entitlement process. So we would be working with the town in discussing all aspects of the project, but certainly the utility configuration, the design standards, as well as ongoing ownership and maintenance, whether this is developed as a private subdivision, if this is developed under a PERD special permit, I think depending on those answers, some of the specifics might be geared toward one option versus the other. But at this point here, at a minimum, if we receive grant funding for this, we would have to give the town an easement that would give them the right to access this. And depending on the, like I said, the developer's overall ownership model and their development scheme, we would, as a part of our approval through the town, determine what would become town-owned, what would be privately owned, and what would be the responsibility for ongoing and maintenance. No different than any other development that would receive a special permit in town.
But the issue is, you know, we would like to avoid additional costs to the affordable housing future residents.
Absolutely.
You know, in other words, we would like to get to a situation where we could do a turnkey to the town. I mean, I personally would like to do a turnkey to the town so that they take ownership of the infrastructure and future maintenance.
As someone who represents a number of developers, that would be my primary objective, absolutely. I just, at this point here, I couldn't tell you for sure that the town would accept this without having done that preliminary work and had more detailed meetings with them. But I just wanted to point out that if the grant funding source is available, then at a minimum, the town would retain an easement over any improvements for the water, sewer, or driveway that's funded with that with the MassWorks funding.
Okay, good enough.
Fred, I did speak to Sean Van Duzen, and he seemed to think that the town would not have an issue with taking that over. So, I mean, that's just.
I mean, there's still a lot of
solid,
unknowns. So, you know, in terms of which direction the project gets developed.
Yeah.
But I think that this is a sufficient answer at this point.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a question about the roadway, Brent. You mentioned moving the access point to the site toward the crest of the hill.
Correct.
How close to the property line will that get? I mean, it's feasible, right? We own the property or the.
Oh, yes. We actually, and I think that property corner with our butters to the north, I believe that's actually marked with either an iron pine or a granite monument. I don't recall off the top of my head from our site visit here, but my opinion is there's sufficient room for an appropriate curb cut contained within the property that's owned by this that improves the sight distance entering the property both to the north and south, which not only makes the vehicle entering the public way more visible to cars on the public way, but vice versa, it makes it easier for someone pulling out to see oncoming cars in either direction. And
I think that addresses a major concern, a traffic concern that we had.
There's about 204 feet or so of frontage, so that's how far we could move it.
Good.
But moving it 100 feet north, wouldn't that put it right on the property line of that existing house?
He just told you there's 200 feet of frontage.
200 feet total, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, and he's moving in 100 feet.
That's an approximate distance. I haven't done a detailed site survey that would actually identify that property corner and the topography of the crest of the hill. From pacing it off going up the hill, I assumed it was 100 feet, but it's very obvious based on the site walk where that actual location would be. And that's where, with the benefit of a detailed site survey, that one identifies that property corner exactly where that is, and allows us to frankly do more detailed design work. If I was walking with you, I could tell you right where I want to have, and then fortunately with the fact, depending on if we do a PERD versus a traditional subdivision, perhaps we wouldn't need as wide of a curb cut apron as you would have with a traditional subdivision road that would ultimately be sought to be accepted by the town. That's where the special permit process gives us more flexibility. So can I tell you, is the curb cut going to be 10 feet, 20 feet at this moment? No, I can't. But can I tell you, by shifting it further north, are we going to be able to address the sight distance concern that makes the existing apron unsafe? Absolutely. And we certainly work closely to ensure that we don't certainly create any hazard for the neighbor to the north by the virtue of moving that curb cut.
I think also if you pin the curb cut to the property line, there's a knoll there on the butter's property, that would kind of protect them from the curb cut, which then you could pull the driveway away. You don't have to hug the property line all the way along. But the driveway does act as a kind of buffer, which, we're trying to do a buffer all along the perimeter of the inside piece of the property, but it's not necessarily, it'd be nice if we could also do a buffer along those two pieces that are kind of close together on the frontage. So I think the driveway is probably going to work really well for the north abutters, but they're not on the call, but we'll try to get their opinion on that.
Okay.
I was also
I do
happy
feel
to see
comfortable
that
that they're,
looking at a
if I
solution
could just extend on that one.
problem.
Can we let Carolyn talk first?
Sorry. I was also happy to see that, Brett, you had identified a possible action item before the decision on the Alden land is even made in order to solve the problem that the neighbors have been talking about in terms of speed with some additional signage. I thought that was very smart.
Well, I heard the concern from some of the previous meetings that you had, and when I did my site visit, I came through West Stockbridge, and I sat there and I said the closest speed sign is actually in the neighboring town, and I think the one to the south is, if I'm not mistaken, very close to the actual center of town. I don't recall, certainly more than a mile away. So I think one additional signage, and then if the town, again, speaking with the DPW, if they would consider the ones that have the solar panel on it that could put a speed radar on there. I know just from my own personal experience, they certainly get your attention and help to slow traffic down. And if I could just get back to briefly the last comment with respect to the curb cut, though, based on the amount of flat topography that we have kind of at the top of that hill, I would feel confident that we have enough room for an appropriate curb cut, as well as the ability to even supplement some buffer plantings between the driveway and that property to the north. One, we're going to want to control stormwater, things of that coming off the driveway, so we're not going to put the edge of the driveway a foot off the property line on our own. We'd want to have that buffer as it is, and if putting additional screening plantings on that area is of concern to the neighbor to the north, I don't see how that can be easily accomplished in a more detailed design of that proposed curb cut.
Okay. Other questions?
I'll wait for the board, and then I have a couple questions.
Well, any other board members have a question for Brett?
I don't at the moment.
Go ahead, Dan.
So regarding your water runoff, if you kind of examine that property, Brett, sometime after these heavy rains we had like last week, you'll notice that the property just to the south of it get basically flooded right there at the bottom. What is your opinion as far as by introducing more impervious surfaces such as paved parking and rooftops and things that are going to be creating more water runoff? How do you feel that those properties directly to the south that are on the corner of Wyantnik Street, how do you think they would be affected?
Sure. Well, I tell you, one of the things that stands out, fortunately, just based on the overall well-draining characteristics of the soils, and by clustering, I think the best use of this property would involve some sort of clustering the houses around the road to, one, create as much of a natural visual buffer around our surrounding properties, for one, but two, to also provide additional opportunities for multiple stages of stormwater runoff, whether it be roof leaders to have a stone drywall right up against the house, as well as rain gardens and buffer plantings kind of around the outside perimeter. Where the current driveway is right now, if you were to park and walk in there, the immediate house to the south of us, you'll actually see a PVC gooseneck vent. That's actually their septic system that's right up against the property boundary with ours here. So when June and I, when we walk the property, it's one of the things I flagged immediately is we would actually want to really just, if anything, do more screening plantings in that area, but we would actually even avoid directing stormwater management in that area to get it further away from that property, knowing that putting more stormwater in close proximity to their septic system would be detrimental to that. So I think, frankly, based on the soil characteristics that we have and the flexibility that we have under the special permit design process, we have the ability to design the product in a way that does not have as much impervious area versus a traditional subdivision with 32-foot wide roadway, sidewalks on both sides, things to that effect. So my goal would be, working with a developer, would be, I think the special permit route, one, it gives us more flexibility to design it, and two, that process also frankly gives the neighborhood more input than they would going a more traditional subdivision route to address those site-specific issues. So that's our most immediate abutter to the south, and I think frankly with the way the land mass opens up and back, I see no reason why we wouldn't be able to provide a great natural buffer as we go. I forget the name of the street where there's a sharp S-curve in it. I saw that's an area where there's an existing catch basin that seems to be problematic to see, where the water puddles up during wet periods. And one of the things that I was looking at, the topography, it's relatively flat as you were to go from west to east towards our property. But working with the DPW, I believe that's a leaching catch basin that the only outlet is infiltration into the ground. One of the thoughts that I had was, if the elevations work right and it's not going to be a visual nuisance to the most immediate abutters, perhaps we work with the town as a part of this overall process to provide a drainage easement, the developer providing an easement to the town of Great Barrington to allow the discharge from that catch basin come onto our property and let us incorporate that into either a detention pond, rain garden, what have you, just based on our overall site design, depending on if we do water or sewer or septic system. We'd want to coordinate all those things. Obviously, if we have to do on-site septic systems, that's going to impact our density, and two, how we carefully manage stormwater and don't impact our own septic systems as well as the septic systems that would be closest to our property boundaries, where I think, frankly, the ones at the south would be the most potentially impacted, but that's something we would look at on the entire perimeter of our abutters in our land. The Alden property, it's not my land.
Right. It's soon to be our land. So just kind of so I can clarify what you're basically saying about your, I obviously understand you don't have a lot of these answers just because there's obviously not a site design yet, but as far as water retention coming directly from your property or from the Alden property, so you don't feel that there would need to be, you feel that you could capture all the runoff, keep it within the Alden property. You wouldn't have to introduce stormwater systems.
No, I would not envision any need for this property to connect to a municipally owned drainage system here. And I think with a cluster development, especially, that would give us enough room to capture all that runoff, even with some backup aspects of the stormwater design to ensure that we don't have any of our future runoff that would be generated on this property impacting any of our abutters to the north, west, or south.
Okay.
I think the way you accomplish that is, one, with just overall smart design in terms of the cluster not having as much impervious area from longer driveways, multiple sidewalks, things to that effect. Part of it will be in the design of the homes, how each individual structure itself can maintain the water, because if we can have each house kind of capture and collect all its water on that own individual plot, it doesn't allow the water to accumulate and become a much bigger, decentralization is what that's how we identify that. But again, the more water you can capture and put right back in the ground where the house is built, the less issues you have in terms of all the water from this entire property running down the road and collecting at one point that could potentially cause a problem. I think this property gives us a flexibility to really spread that water and put it back in the ground, which is the ultimate goal of stormwater management. The less water you collect in one area, the less water you need to manage, and the less problems you'll have with that, versus, again, everything going to one spot on the property. So that would be my approach in designing the stormwater for this, as well as providing some additional backup around the perimeter to ensure that we don't create a problem for our neighbor.
Right. Is that a costly thing? Does the stormwater runoff become a huge, as far as the development goes, does that become a costly?
My opinion is, based on the soil conditions that we have on the site, no, it does not.
Okay.
If this was a site that was all hard pan and clay, one, we'd have a lot more runoff to manage in general. And two, we would be creating much larger detention ponds just because we wouldn't have the ability for that water to be infiltrated in the ground. And one of the comments I made reference to under the sections related to soils and septic systems is you walk the neighborhood, you drive up and down North Plain Road. Just south of this, there's a site on the east side of the road. Looks like they just did a substantial addition or built a new structure with some brand new septic systems that were built, and even some others to the north that have been upgraded. All the septic systems are flush with grade, which tells us that we have a very deep groundwater cable, which allows us to know that we can infiltrate the stormwater in that area and not be dealing with flooding issues, things to that effect. If we had more poor soils, or if we had a shallower water table, it would be a more expensive venture to manage that. There's no question, but I think these soil conditions on the property really make it advantageous to not be sinking a lot of your site costs in stormwater management and focus them more on foundations and the actual building itself. The soils play a great role in how easy or difficult and how expensive it is to manage water on site, and we have essentially the most optimal conditions a developer could have for that type of situation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the Alden property project? All right. Shall we move on to rental assistance?
Yes, we should.
Okay.
This is Brent White. I'm going to sign off now, but thank you all for your time. And if after the meeting you have any other questions, I believe a number of you have my email address. I'm certainly happy to follow up with any responses from either the board or members of the public.
Thank you very much, Brent.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
So, Jane, could you give us a little update on where you're at with the rental assistance so far?
Sure. Not a lot has changed since I sent the report to you. We're in the midst of getting the money out the door to the landlords. We had, I think, a little over 40 applicants that were from Great Barrington last week. This week it's up to about 45, so it has slowed a little bit for May assistance anyway. The total is right about 100 in terms of applications. The good news has been we've been able to refer some of those folks to other resources, as we discussed in the application process. The thing that I'm not sure I was anticipating when we applied is, which is also alluded to in the report, is that I'm not sure doing this for 90 days is going to meet the need. I think my concern is it will meet the need for now, and then maybe it will subside for a while, but I don't think this is a one and done. I think we need to be prepared for a higher level of unemployment, a higher level of underemployment, and need for rental assistance until the virus is really contained in a way that allows towns and everybody else to function normally, whatever that ends up being. So that's a conversation I'm having in a lot of different places. We've applied for additional funds from a couple of bank foundations and some other private foundations. So we are being proactive to try to balance that out as best we can. But being able to have the flexibility with what you're talking about with using the down payment assistance, if needed, for rental assistance would be I don't even know what's the word I'm looking for. Would be reassuring, I think, that maybe there would be funds there over the long haul. We would continue to be as frugal as possible in giving them out.
So if there was a report that was available, I don't believe I received it.
Me too.
I sent it to Bill last Monday.
Oh, maybe I haven't sent it out.
So we don't really know.
It was really brilliant. So,
it's been, or how difficult it's been, or what the profile is of the people who are coming forward. Are they recently unemployed?
Yes.
Are they service workers? Are they at the 100%, area mean, or are they, more like at the 80 or 60%?
It's a range, but it's all definitely folks whose income has decreased as a result of COVID. If folks are eligible for other benefits, that's where we refer them. If folks need help with arrears, we refer them elsewhere. This is all folks whose income has gone down as a result of COVID, and I can't think of any of the applications that have not been loss of income. The good news is that from the time some of the people applied to the time we started writing checks, a number of those folks have gotten their stimulus checks. A number of folks have gotten their unemployment started. So some of those rental assists could be more in the $500 to $700 range versus what we thought was going to be $800 to $1,000. And it's a broad range of income levels. We haven't gotten a lot. I don't think. I'll ask June if she knows. At that 80 to 100, and I think it's just partly that I don't think those folks necessarily really understand that they're eligible, because it's new. This is not something most folks at 100% of area median income have necessarily had to deal with.
So our crew is actively trying to sort through the applicants so that anybody who can get help from somewhere else does that. So that they're helping people apply for unemployment, they're helping people apply for RAF, they're helping people apply for anything that they can get that's gonna beef up their income so that they don't need this. Because we know that we don't know how long this is gonna go, and we don't know how long these funds are gonna last. So we're actively trying to move people onto other programs, and that's been very successful. Anyone who's still at 100% of area median income is not really applying. If they're still making that money, then they can pay their rent. And a few people, because of their unemployment, 35% of their income was more than their rent, and so they did not qualify. So we're taking people who no longer make 100 or 80% of the area median income, and that they're just looking for a boost. But a lot of those people, if they got the stimulus check, we're putting them off and asking them to use that, and then moving them on to next month. So
one part of your proposal was to work with landlords. Mm-hmm. Has that been successful?
Yes, very successful. And it's really heartwarming, because a lot of the landlords are saying, well, you know, what can I do? And they're talking to their tenants and, you know, figuring out, can they wait for part of it? Can they forbear part of it? So yeah, that's been great. And Jane and I got on a call with Mass Housing Partnership. They recommended that we go through a whole W-9 process with the landlord. So that kind of formalizes the whole thing and gives us a really good, we'll have really good data when we're done with this.
It is taking a little bit more time than we thought it would, but it all still is working out within the support that we've gotten from United Way and the support that we've specifically gotten for this project at this point. And I think our hope is that it will become a little bit more streamlined. But you know, as always, we're dealing with folks who are really scared about how they're going to make ends meet. So some of it is kind of hand-holding, and some of it is crunching numbers. So it's right now not a linear process.
Okay.
I could add one more thing that's from the report, since I don't think folks saw it. We anticipate about $19,000 to $21,000 going out in May across all of South Berkshire. So that's not just Great Barrington.
And how much of that is coming from our funding? Do you have any idea?
Just for the Great Barrington folks, that's, I want to say we got 45 applications as of today. And I don't have the exact numbers of that, just it really is pushing our staff's capacity to get them out the door now. I definitely will have a better report in terms of that kind of detail next time we meet.
Okay.
Jane, how many landlords do you have?
Same number as tenants, so about 90.
90?
About that, yeah. In some cases, we're talking to the landlords whether we end up giving a financial assist or not, because we want to be really clear that we're not creating an us and them situation. We are not encouraging anyone to go on a rent strike. We are wanting to work with the tenants and the landlords to create a solution that works for everybody. So we see it as an opportunity to build relationships.
Another positive thing with the landlords is that they are being patient, knowing that someone is working with their tenants to help get their rent paid. They're willing to wait till the middle of the month. Thank goodness, because it takes a while. And we are asking them, when we speak to the landlord, we're asking them, do you have any other tenants that are going to be needing assistance? Because we really want to get the word out. And we also let them know that the funding is coming from the Affordable Housing Trust. So they know about you if they didn't before.
Good.
So as I understand it, you're looking ahead 3 or 4 months and saying, you know, if we're at this point now where the first round of stimulus is factored in, what's going to happen in 30 or 60 days? You know, if we say out of your 20,000, 12,000 is Great Barrington, you know, could we anticipate that, you know, a floor would be 12,000 a month that we would need to put in, plus, you know, not the stimulus money, so therefore maybe it'd be even higher per month? What is your projection, say, going out 3 months?
Boy, I wish you could tell us.
I'd say it's at least the 12,000. Fred, I think you were probably right that the need is going to grow, but I think our projection for the overall project is that to really be able to provide the amount of support that's needed, and I'm not talking about getting this from the Affordable Housing Trust at all, but across all sources, it would be ideal if we had about $230,000. Of that, we would give out about $215,000.
On the one hand, as you say, the stimulus money will be played out. Everyone will have that. On the other hand, unemployment was taking a while to kick in because the unemployment office was so backed up. So we're hoping that more people will have unemployment. And we tried to identify the people who weren't eligible for the unemployment. And so we're trying to track that particular crowd. But then, I mean, with all the headlines I'm seeing, with all the arts closing their programs for the season, so no Shake and Co, no Jacob's Pillow, no, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what that's going to do to the restaurants. Don't know.
The restaurants that survive, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know that they'll be able to hire back all their employees. You know, there's a lot of unknowns.
So what is the, forgive me if this was in an email to me and I missed it. What is the ask?
We are coming to this meeting in response to Bill going to the CPC and requesting flexibility on the mortgage down payments to enthusiastically support that flexibility.
And I did go to the CPC meeting. We sort of broached that subject. They seemed very open to it and very supportive. So that's why I have to have a motion from the board in order to go back to the CPC and say, yes, the board agrees we should have more flexibility on that money, but it needs to go before town meeting because it's a town meeting decision. It was voted by town meeting last year to give us $100,000 for the down payment assistance program. And that money was restricted to be used for down payment assistance. So all I'm going to ask them to do is lift that restriction so that we can use it for either down payment assistance or rental assistance during COVID or some other thing that might come up, which we haven't even heard of yet. Yeah.
Okay. How did you get to the 230, Jane?
I used the number of renters across the South Berkshires and some of the statistics I've seen across the state and nationally that at least a third of the folks who rent are not going to be able to pay their rent through this period. And then I projected it out for the 3 months. So this is, I would say it's a pretty conservative number knowing that, but
Yeah.
it's also a lot more rental assistance than we've ever been able to provide.
Are there other people providing rental assistance in Southern Berkshire?
Yes, for folks who are in arrears, they can get funding called RAFT through the Berkshire Regional Housing Authority. Folks who are on subsidies can go to their housing authority if their income has changed and get that subsidy increased. Those are the two that I know the best, that are kind of the most substantial.
Because this could very well go on for another 6 months or more.
Well, and of course, Lennox followed your lead, remember, and they, their Affordable Housing Trust also provided rental assistance money to us to administer.
Right.
And we got $50,000 from the Jane and Jack Fitzpatrick Trust to use ideally for the balance of the county. That the hope would be the Lennox money works for Lennox, the Great Barrington money works for Great Barrington, and then that money is available for everyone else. We're not nickel and diming it that way, but we definitely are using Great Barrington money for Great Barrington residents.
Okay. What I'd like to do, and I don't think I can put it on the screen, unfortunately, because I didn't put it into my document file. I was on a phone call for 2 hours before this. But what I do is I'd like to move that the trust ask the CPC to remove the restriction limiting the $100,000 of CPA funds provided to the trust by town meeting vote for fiscal 2020 to the AHTF's down payment assistance program, so that the trust can have the option to use said funds for either down payment assistance or to provide funding for Construct's ongoing COVID-19 rental assistance program or other such need as might arise. Also, that the trust ask the CPC to add this request to the CPA warrant articles for the upcoming fiscal 2021 town meeting vote, and that the chair of the trust and any other members of the board designated by the chair are hereby authorized to take such steps, including signing any documents necessary to accomplish the foregoing.
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay.
What if something happened and Construct didn't need all that rental assistance money? Can we still use it for? We want to have latitude to use it for one or the other.
Yes.
Correct.
Exactly.
Well,
And please remember that we don't, the only money we've gotten up front is the administrative money to be able to get this moving. We are doing the rental assistance on a reimbursement basis. So if we're not going to use the money, we won't get it.
And John, we'd have to take another vote, or Jonathan, we'd have to take another vote to allocate any of this money towards the rental assistance program. This doesn't obligate us to take that money. It just gives us an enabling legislation to be able to do it. We have to go back to town meeting to have it remove the restriction.
Right. So we want the latitude to spend it either way.
Yes.
yeah, that's what we're asking for. And I've had a talk with Tom Levold about it, and he's expressed his enthusiasm about this program, about our doing this.
Well, if you think about the town of Great Barrington having some sort of a need to provide support for residents, this may be the best source of that money rather than taking it out of other funding that's obligated for other space places.
Right. This
is consistent with mass housing and what the Affordable Housing Trust was set up to do.
Exactly. And this money is essentially available to the trust, but right now it's restricted. So we just want it, we want that restriction removed so we can use it for either, wherever the need is, basically.
Right.
I don't know who that is, but.
Bill, can you put the resolution up on the screen?
Let me see. I think I can do that.
'Cause I don't think I can do it because I don't have it in documents.
Let's see.
You go to share, go through share screen.
I'm not sure. Not there.
But I think we all understand what the resolution
Yeah.
says.
Yeah, I mean, I can send it to you once I get it off.
All right, hold on. I'll
See if you can do
Oh,
it.
there.
You go through share screen and you should be able to do it.
Yes. Okay, here we go.
Okay, good.
Um,
Then go into your documents file and pull it out.
Here it is. No, that's a calendar. Don't need that.
No,
Here it is.
there it is. You got it.
Okay, I can see if I can make this bigger. Can anybody read it?
Yep, it's
I can read it.
Okay.
And as Fred said, this is basically, we specifically worded it the way we did. So in order to see if we can get freedom to use the 100,000.
Right. I mean, we can only use it for affordable housing. So, but
yeah.
we never, I'm unclear if something else might come up that, you know, people could use the money. My guess is we're going to have plenty left over for the down payment assistance, but.
We need to make clear that the definition of affordable housing is not simply building or maintaining or supplying new affordable housing units, but it also includes support for people who are threatened and support for people who could lose their housing. So it's a much broader definition, I believe.
Yes.
I don't think we need to do that in the motion.
No, I don't think so. I think this is pretty specific as to what it is we want to do. The CPC seemed very open to it at their last meeting. And I think we just need to have a vote on it. And if everyone's comfortable with this.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing, and that's basically we've been formed for a couple of years now. And to my knowledge, I believe we've been able to grant 2 down payment assistance grants in that time. And we've had discussions about this in the past. The window, if you will, between what properties are for sale in Great Barrington, your ability to qualify for a mortgage, and your ability to meet the income restrictions means that not everyone can qualify. In fact, you have to be, you know, standing on your left foot in order to qualify for this.
Pretty much, yes.
And the bottom line is, it has been helpful. There are people in a house that they wouldn't have been able to afford without this.
Yep.
But going forward, I don't conceive of a plan where we can spend $100,000.
Right. And we still have probably 70 something.
We have 70,000 roughly left after that.
Yeah,
even
from the first 100,000.
Right.
And I think that after all of this mess is over, if it ends, people will want to buy houses here. I think we will be providing rental assistance in the future.
Yes.
But for the time being, I think, yeah, the restriction should be lifted.
Yeah. Okay. Should we, is there Anybody else have anything before we take a vote?
I'm thinking.
Well, take your time. It's all right. We got time. And we can always go back to the CPC if we end up needing more down payment assistance. And that seemed to be a pretty well-liked program by the CPC.
So
I don't see any problem going back to get more money from them.
That would be my concern, would be only about getting more money and changing the way we're doing things. I don't know if that's going to make everyone your brother every time something happens. You're going to look at us, which might take us off a course of what we originally started out to do, which was affordable housing.
Right.
Well,
Well,
and I hope this doesn't
I'm all
happen
for the
again.
rental assistance. Don't get me wrong.
No.
Believe me, I'm all for that. And that was one of my things as well, is not just doing home rentals as well, but I'm just concerned whether or not things were going to get out of hand, I guess.
I don't know what get out of hand means.
Well, will we end up doing, well, it's hard to say, I guess, with the economy now and things the way they're going, but well, I was just wondering if we'll be doing it more assisting people that don't have their money as opposed to helping someone to buy a home, I guess.
well, I think we can move forward on both fronts.
Yeah, if you read it, if you read what we're asking for really carefully, we should be able to go forward on both fronts.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is the worst economic crisis that we will have in my lifetime. I sure as hell hope we don't have this revisited on us again.
No.
So this is the time to step up.
Agreed.
For
Most
sure.
of these people are out of work through no fault of their own.
That's right.
You know, there are people who never thought they would be in this situation that have very few resources now.
Yeah, and I think there's a severe lack of oversight with what's happening with the stimulus checks and the government unemployment funding. We have employees who are getting unemployment without being employed, like they're currently employed and they're getting unemployment checks without a claim coming through their employer or anything. So people are getting money left and right, and other people are struggling to stay in their homes. So I think that the local organizations are going to be the people that are really going to be able to help and have proper oversight of where money's going and stuff. I think the
Well,
larger picture is a big mess, but yeah, I think we have to help now.
I mean, quite frankly, there are people who are providing money and funding for food banks and for other kinds of support, but somehow or other rental assistance or paying somebody's rent or helping out isn't as attractive. And there aren't that many agencies. I mean, there's a dozen agencies just in Southern Berkshire that are working on food issues and food banking issues. But there's very, very few at all doing anything about housing. And we need to step up and do our part, I think.
Agreed.
I have a quick
I
question.
agree with that.
I have
I agree with that.
Okay.
I have a quick question for June and Jane. Do they have a rental assistance program outside of this emergency program, or
Does Construct?
yes?
We have had a very small capped at $300 financial assistance program. Sometimes that ends up being fuel assistance after the BCAC funds have run out. Sometimes it's rental assistance, but it was almost always capped at $300. We would get maybe 3 or 4 applications a month. And whenever possible, we would do the financial counseling and try to find something other than writing a check that would be more sustainable. So yes, but not anything like this scale.
And do you think if there's money left over, do you think this money could go to that, or?
you know, I hate to say no to money, but I don't know that I think that that would be the best use of it in light of the Affordable Housing Trust. And again, whenever we can do something that helps folks manage their money, maybe get a microloan so they can build their credit. I think there's hopefully when the economy gets stabilized, there will be other tools so that we're not writing nearly as many checks. I'm perfectly willing to do it if it's needed, but it's not it's not the sustainable thing, except for, you know, when you're helping someone out of a crisis, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's
So
other programs that do that. The raft funds are geared toward that. There are other county-wide folks that do that kind of assistance.
Okay.
So that brings up one very interesting issue in terms of the wording on this document. The wording is, and the motion, as I understand it, is specifically for Construct's COVID-19 rental assistance program. I would suggest that we modify the language to, in the second paragraph, to say, to provide funding for the rental assistance program administered by Construct. And I would move Construct to the back. I would strike ongoing COVID-19 from the sentence. So I can read the whole thing if you like.
Okay.
So second paragraph, so that the trust can have the option to use said funds for either down payment assistance or to provide funding for rental assistance, the rental assistance program administered by Construct, or other such needs as might arise. I just want to take the COVID-19 out of it.
Ah,
We can when we're presenting it to the board, we can say this is because of the COVID-19 rental assistance program, but we don't have to put it in the language or the body of the text.
Are you comfortable with that, Jane and June?
I am, because I think that, you know, we cannot predict what shape this recession is going to take. If, you know, there's a very good chance it's going to have a rebound. And then, you know, even after a vaccine, we don't know what the economy is going to do. It could bottom out again. So I feel like that gives you a little bit more flexibility for the purposes of this.
Right.
And it might be COVID-22 next time.
Right.
Not to be
Right.
too negative, but
Oh my God.
Oh, God.
let me try this.
So this money won't get used unless, you know, it's a reimbursement. It's not, and this is our one opportunity because it has to go through town meeting. If we miss this, we have to wait till next year to have anything. And this is basically asking if we can put some money in our bank account so that we can, in the future, decide to use it.
Essentially, yes.
If we
That's
don't
correct.
use, you know, if we only use 2/3 of it this year, and then next year we decide, you know, that there's another economic crisis that we need to work on, we can do that without having to go back to the CPC and the town meeting.
How's that? Oops.
Well, I would just say Construct's rental assistance program. Funding for the rental assistance program such as Construct's.
Yeah.
And just leave it, end it there, such as Construct's program,
Okay.
and take out the COVID-19. And then we have comma or such other need as might arise. So it gives us real flexibility to use the 100,000.
Yes, there we go. How's that?
That's good. I like it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Shall we have a vote? Or is there any other discussion? No other discussion? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And roll call discussion, roll call vote. Garfield,
Yes.
Larissa,
Yes.
and Fred,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Aye.
John,
Yes.
and I, Bill. So it's unanimous. We will, I'll send an email to the CPC and make this request. And they, I believe, are going to have a meeting next week sometime, but I'm not sure what they've scheduled.
So I gather we're within the 60 days for the warrant?
I
Is that
believe
right?
we are. Yes. Bye, June. Thank you.
Thanks,
Aye,
Jane.
thank you so
Bye,
much.
Jane.
Yes, we have enough time to get on the warrant.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's it. We have citizen speak time.
Well, wait, Bill, we need
What?
to talk a little bit more about the Alden property. I wish June hadn't left so quite quickly.
Oh, I thought
We
were-
only have the engineering report. There was a second part of that, was a feasibility report.
Yes.
Do you
that-
have an update on the schedule for that?
Yes, I believe that by June 1st, she said she would have the rest of that.
June by June 1st, got it.
Yes.
I have just a housekeeping issue that I'd like to comment on. I just want to make sure that everyone on the committee understands that when technical information or other information is sent out, that they should not be replying all on an email. That is considered deliberation
That's right.
under the open meeting law. And really don't reply just back to Bill and not CC or reply all to everyone.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
And can you send around Jane's?
I will. I
report?
thought I had sent it around, but apparently I haven't. So
And this has nothing to do with the rental assistance, but Garfield, I've gotten like 37 emails from you in the last 2 days. It's like some weird video, but I don't want to open it because I feel like your email got hacked. Just look.
Something happened, yeah.
Just look into it.
I will. You're not the second one that mentioned something like that.
I got like
It was-
6 whilst we've been sitting here.
wow.
So
I haven't even touched that thing, yeah. Oh my God. All right.
I'll
Thank
send
you.
you an email.
I haven't
I'll
gotten
send you
any. So,
a
yeah.
tech support email.
Well, you know what, Bill? You probably, I don't know why, but you must not have gotten my email, which has nothing to do with, but I had asked you to remind me at the time, and I never heard back from you, so maybe you
Oh.
didn't even get that.
No,
Look,
I
I
think-
remembered it was
I
5.
did send that out.
Did you? I didn't get that.
Yeah, I sent.
When
to
did you
the,
send it?
Shortly after I got your email. I
Uh,
sent to the
2 o'clock
the
this
agenda.
afternoon.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Garfield,
Interesting.
I'll email you. I'm gonna help you with your techie stuff.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Anything else?
Anything else?
No.
Next
Citizen
meeting,
speak?
GBA with a doodle poll.
Well, we have to ask for a citizen speak time, I guess. We didn't do that.
Right.
Are you ready for citizen speak? I have a question. You are.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Only, I mean, if you guys are done. I have
I
a
think
question.
we're done. Yes.
Okay. So I did get a chance, obviously not in depth, but as we were speaking, I did get a chance to read Brett's report. I am still waiting for June's as well to see what that has to say too. But what have you guys looked into the costs to the town? What, like, for example, if you do decide to go with a traditional sewer system, not a septic system, a sewer system that would have you looked at cost, what it would cost the town to expand that sewer from Oak Street down.
Well, we wouldn't have we would get a grant funding for that from MassWorks. That would not be on the town's ticket.
Okay. Do you know what other costs may be borne by the town, by taxpayers? Have you done that kind of assessment as to what other costs to the town?
I don't know of any, but we'll see what June has to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that
It'd be nice to have those before town meeting, because, if you're asking for $200,000, I think a lot of people would like to know, is it going to cost us $200,000 or $500,000?
Yeah, I don't see the town incurring any other costs, really, Dan.
Okay.
But we'll wait and see.
It would also be nice if you guys actually did an appraisal on that property, because again, being a taxpayer buying a $200,000 piece of property that might be worth $100,000 is not appealing. So
In your dreams, then.
What's
Dan,
that, Jonathan?
In your dreams.
In your dreams, what?
Well, I looked at all the land that it sold, and
Yeah.
nothing even close to being this cheap.
Okay, well, the town has it assessed for like $93,000, so the Aldens were getting a pretty good deal for a long time on their taxes.
Yeah,
which then we probably, Bill, as a select board member, you should really have a conversation about our assessors, because then our assessments on properties are really, really low.
It could be.
So
Yeah, Dan, my property is not low. My little quarter of an acre is assessed for $75,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is assessed at 96,000 or something like that. So, and you guys are buying it for 200,000. So either the assessment's way wrong, which then there's a problem with our assessments, or you guys are way overpaying for this piece of property.
Well, the Foster's parking lot is assessed for 200,000, and they bought it for 450.
Okay, but not with taxpayers' money. So yeah.
Well, the assessment was.
Right, but Foster's lot wasn't paid for by taxpayer money.
I'm just
I'm
trying to compare assessed value to market.
Okay. But my point is that if the town is buying a piece of property, we shouldn't be paying exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper than Reed Cleaners.
Okay. All right, Jonathan, bring that we'll bring it to town meeting. That's all. But it'd be nice if you guys actually had an appraisal on this.
Okay.
Just an opinion as a taxpayer.
Okay.
That doesn't have a trust fund, somebody that actually has to work for a living. So
yeah,
I understand.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, thanks, Dan. I don't see any media left, so I guess I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Set a meeting?
Oh, you want to set another date?
Well, it has to be after June 1st, right? So we can get.
Right. So why don't we look at the first week in June? I'll send a doodle poll around.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
And that way we can get that squared away.
Oh, all my events have been canceled. I'm free. I still have a job. I'm very grateful, but not much else is happening out in the world.
Okay.
I have 3 Zoom meetings tomorrow.
I'm very proud of all of us, because I've spent my whole week teaching my parents and the older generation how to use Zoom and stuff. So I'm well versed.
So I had three total today Zoom meetings.
All right, we all set,
I
folks?
think we're all set. So
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I thought.
You don't have to do a roll call?
No, I don't think we need a roll call for the adjournment.
Okay.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.